Almost every tribute in the 75th Hunger Games was hand-delivered to President Snow before a single name was ever drawn. The reaping is supposed to be the one thing left to chance, two names plucked from a bowl, pure luck, good or bad. But when Snow announces this year's tributes will come from the existing pool of living victors, he already knows something the districts don't. In most of them there's nothing left to draw, that's the trick hiding in plain sight. The reaping wasn't a lottery, it was a performance. And once you understand how shallow those victor pools actually were, you realise the Capitol didn't gamble on this arena, it cast it. This is the story of every tribute the Capitol orchestrated. Everything here comes from the books, and where the movie quietly changes the details, I'll point it out, because those changes matter more than you'd think. Let's start with the ones who never stood a chance. When Snow reads that card, he isn't rolling dice. Take District 12. Katniss is the only living female victor in the entire district. There is no bowl. There is no draw. Her name is a formality the Capitol performs on camera, and the exact same thing is true of Johanna Mason in District 7. Both women were the only living female victors their districts had, which means the second that twist was announced, their return to the arena was already decided. That's not luck, that's arithmetic. And Snow ran the numbers before anyone else in Panem even knew they were numbers to run. But getting them into the arena isn't enough. Watch what the game makers do next. Katniss and Peeta both score a 12 in training, a perfect score. On paper it sounds like praise. It's a death sentence. A 12 tells every other tribute in that room exactly who to eliminate first. The Capitol didn't just reap Katniss, it painted a target on her back and handed the other victors the bow. Now this is where orchestration stops being about mechanics and starts getting personal. Because Snow didn't want these victors dead equally. Some of them he wanted gone specifically. Start with the obvious one. A year earlier, Katniss had done the unthinkable, pulling out those berries and forcing the Capitol to crown two victors instead of watching one kill the other. It looked like a love story. Snow knew better. It was defiance broadcast to every district in Panem, and by the time the Quell rolls around, those districts are already quietly stirring. Snow doesn't fear Katniss because of her bow. He fears what she started to mean. That is not a threat you leave sitting in a bowl hoping the right name comes out. Now look at Johanna. Years before the Quell, she refused to play along. Snow trafficked his victors, sold them to Capitol citizens like prizes, and when Johanna refused to comply, he had everyone she loved killed. She's got no one left, and she spends her interview screaming straight at the cameras that the Capitol wants to murder her all over again. A woman like that is a live wire. The Quell was Snow's chance to put her somewhere a death would look like sport instead of an execution. Then there's Finnick Odair, and he might be the single most dangerous person in that arena. And it has nothing to do with a trident. Finnick was sold to the Capitol too, starting at 16. But instead of taking their money, he started asking for their secrets. Think about what that actually means. For years, the most powerful people in the Capitol, the officials, the strategists, the ones who keep Snow's machine running, whispered their darkest confessions to a boy they assumed was just a pretty face, and would never dare repeat a word. Every affair, every betrayal, every crime buried under the marble. Finnick remembered all of it. He was a blackmail file with a pulse, and Snow knew it. There was no version of an uprising where Snow could afford to have Finnick loose in Panem carrying that kind of ammunition. So into the arena he goes, and once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it running through the rest of the board. BT won his games by wiring a single trap that killed 6 tributes at once. Hand a mine like that a rebellion and he stops being a victor and starts being a weapon, which is exactly what he becomes when his wire tears the arena open. Chaff and Cedar come from District 11, Rue and Thresher's district, the first place in Panem to riot after the 74th games. Snow doesn't just get to remove 2 victors there, he gets to be head the district most likely to rise. And here's the part that proves it was never really about loyalty. Gloss and Kashmir, the golden brother and sister from District 1, back-to-back victors. Capitol darlings, the 2 most beloved winners of their generation, they get swallowed by the same twist. So do Enabari and Brutus from District 2, careers who built their entire lives around serving the Capitol. It didn't matter which side of the arena you thought you were on. Every name Snow needed gone had a reason attached to it, and the ones he didn't need still filled a slot. He wasn't thinning a herd, he was going down the list. So by now the picture looks airtight. Snow rigs the twist, the shallow pools do the sorting, his targets fall right into his lap, and the leftover tributes, the 2 morphlings from District 6, Quiet Wiress, Cecilia with her 3 kids at home, and Mags, a woman in her 80s who the games were never meant to touch. They're just bodies the arithmetic coughed up to fill the other slots, orchestrated by math, if not by name. Except the theory has a problem, and I love that it does, because the problem turns out to be the best part. Not every tribute in that arena was orchestrated. Some of them walked in on purpose. Peter Mellart was never supposed to be there. When the male tribute of District 12 is reaped, it's Haymitch's name that comes out of that bowl. Peter volunteers on the spot to take his place. Snow didn't put Peter in that arena. Peter put himself there to protect Katniss. And this is the cruel little irony sitting at the centre of the whole thing. Snow wanted the star-crossed lovers erased, and by rigging the reaping to guarantee Katniss, he practically guaranteed Peter would follow her in without the Capitol lifting a finger. The orchestration works so well the victims finish the job for him. Mags does the same thing over in District 4, volunteering in place of a terrified broken Annie Cresta. Brutus volunteers because he's a career who genuinely can't wait to get back in. Effie even hints that Chaff put himself forward too. These aren't puppets. These are people making a choice inside the game engineered to strip every choice away. And you could see that defiance building before the arena even opened. On the night of the interviews, the victors did something no tributes had ever done on live television. They joined hands, all of them, in one long chain across the stage. The Capitol's own champions standing together against the Capitol in front of the entire nation. Snow was watching the one thing he'd spent his life preventing take shape on his own stage. And that leads us to the part he never saw coming, because he wasn't the only one orchestrating this arena. Unknown to nearly everyone, the tributes from Districts 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 11 were already quietly working together under a plan run by the new head game maker, Plutarch Heavensbay. Plutarch wasn't loyal to Snow at all. He was a rebel, sitting in the single most powerful seat in the games, and his entire job that year was to keep Katniss alive and get her out from under Snow's nose. The books only imply the Quell itself was tampered with. The movie confirms it, in a deleted scene where Plutarch destroys the original twist card and swaps in a new one. So every tribute Snow believed he was steering toward death was, at the same moment, a piece on a second board he couldn't even see. Snow rigs the games to erase the rebellion. Plutarch rigs the very same games to protect it. And this is what turns the most controlled Hunger Games in history into the one that ends them all. In his rush to wipe out every dangerous victor in a single stroke, Snow made one fatal mistake. He gathered them. He took the smartest, angriest, most defiant people in all of Panem, the ones who understood exactly how the system worked and quietly wanted it gone, and he sealed them together in one arena. He didn't eliminate the rebellion's leadership, he assembled it, and then Plutarch simply opened the door. The most orchestrated Hunger Games ever staged became the one that brought the whole thing down, because the man pulling the strings forgot they could be pulled from the other end too. So the next time you watch that reaping and it plays like cruel random luck, remember it was never random. Nearly every face in that arena had already been chosen, sorted, or sacrificed long before those names were ever read. Snow built the perfect trap. He just forgot to ask who else was allowed to walk inside it, so the reaping was never the roll of the dice everyone thinks it was. It was a guest list. Snow decided who walked into that arena long before the cameras rolled, and the only thing he got wrong was assuming he was the one holding the pen. If this gave you a new way to look at the Quell, drop your take in the comments, I read them. Subscribe if you want more of these deep dives, pulling the Hunger Games apart piece by piece, and I'll see you in the next breakdown.